Hi, greetings. This is Tormod from Norway, and I would like to talk a little bit about psychiatry, schizophrenia, my experience, and so on. So let's start in 2003. In 2003, I was first diagnosed with schizophrenia. At this point, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and delirium. So delirium is alcohol poisoning. But what is schizophrenia? It was obvious to me that the doctors that were treating me and diagnosing me and talking to me did not know or could not give me they could not give me a clear and precise definition of what is schizophrenia. They could not give me a clear and precise definition of my illness. So where does that leave me at that point? I was 25 years old in 2003. So later I learned how they work with reading my symptoms. They would read my symptoms, and from my symptoms they would calculate that my symptoms would mean that I was having schizophrenia, basically. And the symptoms are then the more visual aspect, the more that is obvious to my persona, basically. What is more like you can see or sense with the person that he or she has some symptoms that are very obvious, be it hallucinations or addictions or conspiracy or emotions and so on. So at this point in my life, I was in a hospital in Norway, and there are many things that strikes me with being in a hospital in 2003 and further on, basically. Because when I first came there, I was told that I'm gonna see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, 1 hour per week. 1 hour per week I was to see a psychologist. So I thought, okay, 1 hour per week, that is very little compared to the amount of thoughts, the amount of pictures, the amount of dreams that I have during a week. So I decided for myself that I would start to write. And I would start to write a diary to then be shared with my psychologist, and where he could copy this book that I was writing, and he could ask me questions in our session from my writings, so that there would be more information to draw from when we were talking. So this writing diary and talking to psychologists back in 2003 was really helpful, and I felt real proud and glad that I had started that regime, basically. And but then what happens is that this psychologist that I was talking to was moved in the system of the hospital and treatment, and the concept of me writing and the psychologist reading it was not sustained. And again, my trust to the system would go downwards into the toilet, basically. My trust to the system, to the hospital and to the system would go out, basically. And both these two happenings where the doctor could not give me a clear and precise definition of what is schizophrenia, that, and being treated bad by the system, where this method of me writing to my psychologist was not considered further. So the level of trust between me and the hospital and doctors went to hell, and I would be outside. On the street and doing street drugs and just party and drinking and messing up my reality and being the rocker on the streets, and constantly being pulled back into the hospital for a breath of air, a warm bed, meal, and so on. And the hospital would keep my head above the water, basically. The hospital was my lifeline. But they could not reach into me. And there are many reasons for that, but also that they didn't know what they were looking for, basically, and I didn't know what they were looking for. We were all just question marks wandering around. So this would go on for many years, me in and out of hospital, and later on, when I found Destiny, a online group that is working to become responsible and self-honest. And yeah, that is basically it. To become fully honest and fully responsible for self. And doing what it takes to become that, doing what it takes to reach that, and walking a lengthy process of self-forgiveness to learn to understand and master self, so that one can be self-honest and self-responsible for one's life and living. It was through this group Destiny that I was to learn the definition of schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is when there are 2 or 3 personalities within one's own mind and head, might I add, where there are 2 or 3 personalities that are at once acting out, having a war against the other personality. Okay? And this war, this friction, this noise, this disturbance, these emotions in my head, in my body, in my mind, would then be the definition of psychosis, schizophrenia, mental illness. And, as a result of this internal war, there are voices in the head, hallucinations, disturbing speech, conspiracies, and the conspiracy thoughts, addictions very often. Very, very many problems, basically, within one's living. One faces great problems above anything else with schizophrenia, because one is at war. And I mean war against oneself as personalities within one's own mind, within one's own being. So this has, as I said, lots of complications, and there you have the definition of schizophrenia, with the 2 and 3 personalities being at war against each other. That is the very core definition of schizophrenia. If you can understand that, I congratulate you, you understand lots. So, often this schizophrenia is triggered when one is in a new environment with new people. Often then it's triggered, and one has these instances of hallucinations or voice in the head and so on. In addition to this, my mind would project itself into new mind units. Like my mind unit, the box on my head basically, my mind would duplicate itself into new mind units. So I would have 3 or 4 different mind boxes, mind units to be responsible for. I would have 3 or 4 different mind units to be responsible for. And the reality is then very skewed and marginalized and fractioned. Reality is very pragmatic, basically, and lost, basically. So, when I found Destiny in 2010, 11, 12, I understood something about schizophrenia and my own living. And I was to learn to work with self-forgiveness. When I say self-forgiveness, I mean that, let's go back to my childhood. When I was a young child, I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 7, maybe 5, maybe 8, I'm not sure. At a point in my life, when I was a child, I had a certain expression, perhaps a controversial expression. I had, as a young child, an expression. I can't really recall what kind of expression, but a expression that was not valued or appreciated or considered by my parents, by the adults. And a child expression that I had. And since my parents, my adults, did not see and recognize and consider and appreciate and taught me to value and nurture my own expression, since they did not teach me that or cared for my expression, I learned that, okay, this expression is wrong. I must abandon this expression of mine. This was something that I understood in the living of me being a young boy. So that I, as a young boy, literally learned to abandon this expression that was me. In other words, I started to suffer from abandoned child syndrome. I would abandon myself, as this expression. I would judge and literally poison and try to suffocate this expression of mine. This would go on in my unconscious, my subconscious mind, and this expression would always be there, suppressed and denied and strangled, basically. My expression would always be there. But it was now a more lost part of me, abandoned part of me, a separated part of me. So when I found destiny some 8 to 10 years ago, I started to forgive myself for instance, this abandoning, this trauma of my expression. It is in particular through trauma and drama and things that happen to us, memories. That is where thoughts emerge. Thoughts and behavioral patterns and beliefs emerge. So that if I have a trauma, a very energetic, strong trauma imprinted on me maybe from childhood, something happened to me, the resonance and the fibers from this trauma would in particular give me lots of thinking, perhaps a voice in the head, lots of concerning thoughts, because it's such an energetic memory that is not properly forgiven as myself. Now, equally as I needed to forgive my parents and adults for not seeing and appreciating my expression, I, more importantly, need to forgive myself for this. Because throughout my life, nobody has been a very worse judge to me than myself in thought, word, and deed. So self-forgiveness goes way, way, way deep into penetrating and dissolving emotions and addictions to energies and so on. Self-forgiveness can clear the path of trauma, of drama, of thought patterns, of beliefs, of personalities, of addictions, of mental illness, basically. That's what it did to me. That is why I'm capable of sitting here and talking to you now about me having lived with schizophrenia and being able to dissect and analyze and go through my whole life as it has been so far with great specificity, with a keen awareness and understanding of my own mind, my mental illness, my universal being, and my physical body, my life, mind, being, body. So, I come to realize that if there is something that we need in psychiatry, in Norway and everywhere in the Western world, and so on, if there's something that we need to psychiatry, there's a few things. There's a few things we need. one of the things we need is to make sure that there is found that the help, the seed, the heart, the help, the forgiveness must come from within self, the patient, the individual. Because no matter what assistance and support and all these things, one can get all this assistance and support and guidance from all the system, from the doctors and from the nurses and from the family, from everything, one must start from within the physical being of self to really recognize and want and forgive and open up like the heart to start working on self. One must be able to put in, yes, work on oneself to find that willingness, that heart, that life within me that wants to grow, that wants to live and not be a victim of mind and mental illness. And I see in hospitals today and the doctor's office and everywhere that it is like, when I'm the patient, they should give me something. They should give me something. Take these pills and read these books and listen to this and listen to that. But they must, the psychiatry in Norway and everywhere must be keener to realize that the key to betterment, the key to life, the key to recovery is within the very own being, unique being, life essence of the individual. That is where one must find and that is, one must reach into the patient, to the being, so they can find that seed, that life, that heart in self, to learn that, to grow and expand and evolve and blossom. Now, I understand that almost all people who have lived for a few years have more or less a abandoned child syndrome. Because we have all had some memories, and all of us have some bad memories that keeps us in this loop, this recycling of systems and energies within us. It keeps us in this loop of recycling energies and systems within us, of emotions and polarity from certain specific memories that determine and decide what we think, how we behave, and what we believe, which is almost always limiting and lethal, hurtful, like cancer. Yeah. And that is how it is with weakness and strength, because a weakness is, like we know, a potential strength, like to empower through something, to get through something and be able to say that, okay, I did that. I did take that hike up that mountain. Wow, damn it, that felt good. I feel empowerment. Or I painted the house this summer. Damn it, that felt good. That felt empowering. Or something similar. I started writing my blog about my process through my own mind. That felt damn good. I'm real proud of myself. Empowerment. Self-realization. Self-discovery. That is where it's all at, obviously. Self-discovery. And in that process of self-discovery, going inwards, into me I see, intimacy, into me I see, intimacy, going inwards. In that process of self-discovery, self-realization, the very key factor of self-forgiveness is so powerful and so strong and so unique and deep and fabulous tool to work with. And for anybody with mental illness, and all of us on earth have more or less of a mental illness. There are no normal people. They don't exist. I'm sorry, they don't exist. There are no normal people. It's only us here, and we are equally in this life, in this mess, all of us together. So when working with self-forgiveness, it's so strong, and you know, I really want to help people start their self-forgiveness process. That is something that really lightens me up. I really want to help people start their self-forgiveness process for them to reach their own inner life, their own heart, their own power within themselves. Like I did. Because I'm living proof. I could do it. So can you. I could do it, so can anyone. I've been at the lowest low, believe you me. I was sleeping on the streets of Amsterdam. That's where I was at a certain time in my life. That's how low, deep down, broken I was. I was laying there in a tent that was leaking in water. I was cold and everything was fucked up. Okay? I was practically dead. I was almost dying from the matters of my life, circumstances. So, and there are many reasons why I am able to sit here and talk to you today. But the very most unique and, what shall I say, special reason is self-forgiveness. If one is to work with inner self, the inner child, or the inner child is the wrong word, but the inner life, the inner essence of self, then self-forgiveness is a profound tool to work with, to heal self, to work with self, and to empower. And that is something that I've learned through my schizophrenia, to forgive all the personalities, all the thinking, the backshot, the beliefs, the thought conspiracies, everything. The pictures in my head, the movies in my mind, the loop, round. To let go of that, to find breath, to find stability in my own body, to find sanity in living words, to find myself calm, collected, and home within my own body, and home in here. I'm home when I am here, and that feels so great. If you would like to start to work with self-forgiveness, I mean, it's yet for the masses to discover it, to put it that way. If you want to help with it, I can help you. But you must self-walk it, because like I say, we can get assistance and support and guidance and all that. But there is something that must come from within. And that is life. That is of life. That is the heart. That is the breath. That is the pulsing, the blood, the aspire. And yeah. So for me to work with self-forgiveness is a pleasure. I'm deeply honored. Really. Because when I work with self-forgiveness, it has a certain math to it, right? It's forgiveness, it's forgiving, forgiveness. There's a certain math to it. And I put it this way, because if I have a mental illness, and we all have mental illness, if I have a mental illness, then I want to change something, obviously. I want to change something in my thinking, my believing, my behavior, stuff. I want to change stuff about me. That is understood. I want to change stuff about my persona. I want to change stuff about me. Now, if I want to change stuff about me, I have to understand the stuff I'm going to change. And the systems and programs and units that comes with that. You know? I can't change my imagination if I don't understand my imagination. I can't change my thinking if I don't understand my thinking. I can't change my beliefs if I don't understand from where comes my beliefs. All these things, you know. So for me, walking with destiny and listening to equaf.com for years now, and from reading 7-year journey to life blogs, or blog, a world of blogging in the Destiny group, Destiny Forum, awesome place to be. To change. We all do this to change ourselves. All of us in Destiny work on this to change ourselves, because it is from change we can find understanding. If I'm going to change something, I must first understand what I'm going to change. And if I'm going to understand something, I can't hold grudges or be corrupt in any way, or hold, you know, values, or hold estimates, or emotions, or grudges. If I'm going to understand something, I must be sort of clean, sort of. I must be calm and collected. If I'm going to understand something, I must forgive it. Forgive it all. To understand everything is to forgive everything. Imagine that. So that's a triangle that I often work with. Change, understanding, forgiveness. Change, understanding, forgiveness. One more time. If I'm going to change something, I must understand it. And if I'm going to understand something, I must have forgiving the whole point. I must have forgiving all the components within the point. Change, forgiveness, understanding. Understanding, forgiveness, change. So that's a real nice triangle to work with on self. So, yeah. If you have questions to me about schizophrenia, about self-forgiveness, about my finding, I mean, I walked through, like I said, I was in the streets of Amsterdam. I was all the way on the bottom in life, almost not existent practically. And it was through me, my parents brought me home from Europe, from Amsterdam to Norway. I'm eternally grateful for that. And many times they rescued my ass. Okay? So, I'm eternally grateful for that. And to the Norwegian welfare system that also held my head above the water. But the help, the recovery, the healing from the schizophrenic torment came from within self, and from me. And one must be willing and wanting and daring to look into me. I see intimacy. Into me I see. I see into me. Intimacy. So I was there at that rock bottom, and now I am here in an ecological village, in a beautiful apartment with the best of foods and the best of. I have a very good life. Today I've been swimming in the ocean. It's New Year's Eve 2019. I've been swimming in the ocean today, working out in the gym and everything. My life is filled with content, with meaning, but I wouldn't be here for there are many reasons that brought me to this place, basically, to be here today. But the one I would like to emphasize is self-forgiveness. If you struggle with mental health, mental illness, or life in general, any topic, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, jealousy, blame, judgment, anger, fear, anything that you struggle with, okay? If you are brave enough to say that, yes, I would like some help with this and this and this and this, I am here. I am here. We can communicate. You can drop me a message and we can open up on that whenever you're ready. So, but don't hesitate, because self-forgiveness, basically. Because when I change, the world changes. When I change, the world changes. So let's be the change from within ourselves, and from within live to the without, into a better, saner, and best for all solutions. So, yeah. Let's make the 2020 and onward the best years ever. Let's do this really with forgiveness and embracing of ourselves, so that we are able to forgive and embrace everybody else equally to ourselves. I have been my own worst judge. I must be my own best friend, and I must forgive myself for having been so harsh for myself in thought, word, and deed. In thought, word, and deed, I have been my own worst enemy, and now it's time for me to be my own best friend, so that I, in that order, can be the friend of anybody else, equal and one. Yeah. That's it for me here now. Thank you for listening. Feel free to drop me any comment you have on whatever's on your heart. Let me know what you think about. Let's share, let's open up, let's communicate. See you around.